Donald Trump is on pace for a big victory in the key swing state of North Carolina. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Donald Trump's on pace for a big victory in North Carolina, and I know that sounds crazy. After all, if you go to the RCP average right now, it's effectively a tied race. Right now, it's Trump plus 0.1. Let's just say it's a tie. It's 50-50 in North Carolina as of now on the RCP average. So it sounds crazy to say Donald Trump's gonna win North Carolina by a big margin, which I should be clear that when I say a big margin, I'm not talking about R plus 15. No, that's crazy. I'm not saying that he's gonna win North Carolina by 15 to 20 points. That's not gonna happen. What I do consider to be a big victory in North Carolina is roughly a 3 to 4 point win. And I know that sounds crazy, like, oh, that's nothing. That's a small win. Okay, compared to states like Ohio and Iowa and even Minnesota, yeah, those are small wins for the respective candidates. But in North Carolina, especially in recent years, a 3 to 4 point victory would be considered a big win. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to win North Carolina by 20 points. That's not going to happen. No one should predict that. But I do believe at the end of the day, he's going to win North Carolina by roughly 3 to 4 points. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. But I really believe that, yeah, Trump's going to win. He's not going to win by 0.1%. I think that's crazy. I believe it's going to be a bigger margin than some people expect. Not a 20-point win, but still a 3 to 4 point victory. And there's a bunch of reasons for why I'm saying this. For starters, these polls for Harris in North Carolina are not as good as some people claim. Now, I'm not going to say that the polls are for sure going to be off by 15 points. But let's be honest with ourselves. The only reason this average is this close is because of two polls, Quinnipiac and Survey USA. Really? Harris plus 3. Harris plus 3. Hell, Bloomberg from a month ago was Harris plus 2. If it wasn't for these clear outliers, which again, every other poll outside of these two, Survey USA and Quinnipiac, they find Trump with a small lead, or even Trump plus 2 and Trump plus 3. Every other pollster is finding Trump with a lead. Now, if this was Harris plus 1, okay, fine. You could argue that's statistical noise, but Harris plus 3? From Quinnipiac and Survey USA? Do I have to go down this rabbit hole again about these two polls usually overstating Democrat support everywhere? These same polls had Trump losing North Carolina by 4 to 5 back in 2016, back in 2020, hell, losing everywhere, not just North Carolina. But either way, even with those two garbage polls that are clear outliers, by the way, Trump is up in the RCP average, which is just insane because go back to 2016, go to, middle of September, and Clinton was up by roughly a half a point. Clinton plus 0.6, Clinton plus 0.5, somewhere in that range. Hell, Clinton plus 1. She ended up losing North Carolina by just under 4. 2020, same thing happened. Not as egregious, but still. Look at this. Biden plus 1. Biden plus 1.5. Yeah. He ended up losing North Carolina by roughly 1.5%. And if it wasn't for Trafalgar, Rasmussen, and other Republican pollsters, it would be closer to like Biden plus 4 or 5. That's the problem here. Even with these garbage polls, Trump is up. He was never leading at the same time back in 2016, back in 2020. North Carolina polling, for those that don't know, it sucks. For whatever reason, North Carolina polls, at least a couple pollsters, they have no clue what the hell they're doing. And it's the same pollsters every single cycle that find Republicans down by 3 points, 4 points, 5 points. And in reality, they win North Carolina by like a point or two. But Quinnipiac and Survey USA, the best they could get Harris up by is 3. That's not a huge lead for her compared to prior polling. You see the problem? So these polls, which by the way, it averages out to a Trump plus 0.1, even if you include those big outliers, that's still a Trump win. And if the same polling miss occurs, that's what, a 2 to 3 point miss in North Carolina? Maybe 4? Yeah, so that's roughly in line with what I'm saying. If there's a polling miss similar to 2016 to 2020, that's like Trump plus 2, Trump plus 3, Trump plus 4. But okay, let's just say by some miracle, the RCP average, it's off by a lot. You can't really use it for anything, you know. Well, let's say that's the case. The RCP average is worthless. Fine, okay, ignore the polling for a second. There's other data points that indicate, oh yeah, Democrats have a big problem in North Carolina. For starters, look at voter registration, which I know, when it comes to voter registration in North Carolina, you have to be very careful. And for those that don't get what I'm talking about, North Carolina has a lot of ancestral Democrats. You know, people that are registered Democrats, but they vote Republican. So you could argue, well, maybe a chunk of these Republicans, they're just ancestral Democrats that are finally Republicans. Fine, you could argue that. But there's a bunch of problems with just saying, oh, it's just ancestral Democrats. For starters, Republicans still outgain Democrats 2 to 1. Do you really think these are just ancestral Democrats becoming Republicans? A chunk of it probably is. But do you really think every single one of those ancestral Democrats became Republicans? What's stopping them from becoming independent? You see the problem? It's possible that some of these voters, they just became independent voters. And even then, Republicans out-registered Democrats 2 to 1. And you look at the swing from 2020, look at this. Back in November of 2020, Democrats had a voter advantage of 400,000 voters. Right now, it's only 128,000. Yeah. I get that some of this is ancestral Democrats becoming Republican, becoming an independent. But like I said, that's a huge swing. And that doesn't come from just Democrats becoming Republicans. That's not the case. We have data points from North Carolina that indicates, yeah, there's a bunch of new voters becoming Republicans. People that have never voted before, they are becoming registered Republicans. But fine, let's say by some miracle, just like the polls, you can't use this as a data point. Maybe it's ancestral Democrats inflating the Republican margin, and we don't really know who's actually gaining. Fine, you could argue that. We have one other data point that indicates, oh yeah, Democrats have a big problem in North Carolina. Early voting. Now, I should be clear that this is just mail-in voting. We don't have any numbers just yet with early in person. That starts in, I think, October? I could be wrong, but this is just mail-in voting, which theoretically should be the most Democrat group of all the vote types. You know, mail-in voting, early in person, and election day. Mail-in votes should be the most Democrat. Yet, for whatever reason, as of now, it looks bad for Democrats. Like, this is DEFCON 1. If you're a Democrat looking at this data, it's DEFCON 1. Look at this. Back in 2020, it was roughly 19% Republican. That means of those that requested an absentee ballot, roughly 19% of them were Republicans. In 2022, it was down to 18%. Right now, it's 23% Republican. Yeah. And it's actually becoming more Republican. Look at this. At the start of early voting, or I should say, of absentee requests, it was roughly 21% Republican. Now it's up to 23%. Look at Democrats. They went from 45% back in 2020, 45% in 2022, to only 38% as of now. And it's the opposite of Republicans. Each passing day, it gets even worse for them. Look at the black vote share. Back in 2020, it was roughly 18%. In 2022, it was roughly 14%, which makes sense, you know. With midterms, black voters are less likely to vote. You know, that happens every midterm. Fine. Right now, it's only 11% African American. Yeah. And just like Democrats, their vote share is going down. At the start of early voting, it was roughly, you know, just under 12%. Now it's barely above 11. Each passing day, it gets even worse for Democrats. And just like a total request, look at this. It's only 172,000 right now. In 2022, it was 262,000. Back in 2020, 1.4 million requests. Now, it's going to be more than 2022, but it's going to be nowhere near 2020. You see the problem? So not only are raw votes just way down, which was expected, you know, without COVID, people were less likely to vote through absentee ballots. That's one thing. But it's outright collapsed. That's bad enough for Democrats because even in 2022, they won this voter block by like 60 points. It was insane. But on top of that, Republicans are actually making up a larger share of this vote than even 2022 or 2020. They're up by 5 points. Democrats are down by 7. Which again, this was expected, you know, a small swing towards Republicans, like a 2-point shift. That could be explained as, well, Democrats are more likely to vote early in person or even on election day, and maybe Republicans, they're more likely to vote early this cycle because that's a big focus of the Republican Party. If it was a 2-point shift, fine. But Democrats went down 6%, while Republicans went up 5%. While independents went up roughly 2%, but these independents, they look more white, they look more male, they look more Republican than 2020 or even 2022. That's not a good combination for Democrats because that means this voter block, which they should win by a lot, they're still going to win it, obviously. I mean, it's still 38% Democrat, and those independents are still majority Democrat, more than likely. But if they win it by only, let's say, 20 points, or half of what they won it by back in 2022, is like, they won it by 40 or 50 points. Let's say they win it by 20 to 25%. Yeah, they win it, but it's not the margin they need. And quite frankly, if they're not voting now, do you really think these people are going to vote early in person? Maybe. Maybe on election day. But with how things are looking in North Carolina, it's not looking good for Democrats whatsoever. And it seems like each passing day, it's getting worse, not better. And we're talking about post-debate. Post-debate, Democrats sunk even more. You can't make this up. So you combine all of this, bad polls out of North Carolina, you look at voter registration, which looks great for Republicans, and now even early voting looks like a complete disaster for Democrats. Now, we do got to see what happens with early in-person. Maybe Democrats experience a surge in early in-person votes. Maybe that's the case. But right now, we're getting closer to Election Day, and it's trending downwards for Democrats. For crying out loud, independent voters make up the plurality of these votes, which wasn't the case back in 2022 or even 2020. You see the problem? You just look more at this data, it gets even worse. Is getting better for Republicans each passing day. Turnout's way down, which is just awful for Democrats. And this is post-debate. Well, where's this magical Democrat surge? I don't see it anywhere. Now, could Harris still win North Carolina? Of course. North Carolina's not a guarantee for Trump. But if I had to put money on it, Trump's going to win North Carolina by 3 to 4 points as of now. Could that change? Yes. Is he going to win North Carolina by 15? No. But I believe as of now, this is looking like a Trump +3, Trump +4 state, which it could change. Again, we still have 2 months before Election Day. But right now, on September 14th, 2024, it's looking like a Republican state. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.